Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services of Eastland. Tune in every Monday morning at 8:30 on KATX and again on Saturday morning at 9 on KATX and KWBY as Angela Robinson joins Terry Slavens to share important financial information to help you live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, estate and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Well, very pleasant good Monday morning, everyone. Terry Slavens with you, and Angela Kennedy Robinson. It's Life Planning 101. Good morning, Angela.
Good morning. Good morning, and what a great day it is. What a great topic we've got lined up for you. I tell you what, last week we had a lady in the office, and she was probably the reason, the spark for the show, and I said, I got to pull this thing out, because this is actually comes off an article that we wrote in 2007. So, 9 years ago? And so I was sitting there thinking, gosh, this is too important today. And the reason it is it wasn't just this one lady. It just is kind of the constant theme that's been buzzing, I think, in our ears of what we're hearing people talk about, especially new clients that we get. And so I thought, well, if they're talking about it or thinking about it, I bet you anything our listeners are thinking about this.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so we're going to be talking about retirement, but the question is, what do you do now? After retirement, right? What's next? Yes. And let me just kind of throw out a little story for you, and we'll see if this kind of sounds familiar in any sort of way. It may not sound familiar in all ways, but I think it might hit home from a lot of ways. But let's just imagine that you retire and you say, hey, I want to move to Colorado. And you've kind of been fearful since 2008 of the current turmoil in the market. I think that's all of us, right? And there's a lot going on. We've had kind of artificial growth in the economy. Nothing's really just booming. And then we had this oil pullback, so that even adds more pain. And then we have this election this year, right? Which even adds more pain to the situation. You just keep getting worse and worse. I know, it just keeps digging, right? And so you kind of think, well, on one hand, I've got to do something with my money because I've got to beat inflation. But on the other hand, I feel safer with my money sitting underneath my mattress or my savings account, right? So you do a couple things. You go and buy some CDs. You buy a few stocks. You do a few mutual funds. You do maybe an annuity, but the majority of your money you're keeping in your savings account. And so, but by the way, you've got it all spread across different assets, different advisors. You've got your banker, you got an advisor, you got an insurance agent. They're all helping you. So you feel pretty confident because you trust these people and you know and trust them. And they're good people. So why not? They should be giving you good advice. Herein lies the first issue. Who's looking at your overall financial situation and how all of it blends together?
Because you're dealing with multiples.
That's right.
Instead of one.
That's right. And how did they know what another person gave you for advice, even if you think you're telling them everything that the other person is doing? Because here's the deal. Would you say that this is the first time for most people to get to retire? When you retire, it's the first time that you get to do it.
New experience.
Right. So are you going to know? Right. Are you going to know all the questions that need to be asked at that time? Are you, when it comes to your insurance agent, I'm actually working on a case with a gentleman right now. Oh my gosh, he got this policy about 4 years ago, and needless to say, he had a new insurance agent that was a buddy helping him out. And here we are cleaning up a mess, and this has been taking about 6 months in the case of doing so, but it's so important because he sunk a ton of money into this policy that really should have never been sold to him in the first place. Pretty bad deal. So, we don't always it's not necessarily the person that's a bad person or the situation that's a bad situation, but, he's come to us, I don't know the questions to ask. And he's gotten an education, and to be honest with you, I've gotten a further education in insurance. I mean, we have literally talked to about 7 different experts in different fields because of this.
Did you get 7 different answers back?
No.
They're all consistent?
They're all consistent. And they all kind of work with one area of the insurance, world. And it's been very, very interesting. But it's kind of besides the point here. But my whole point in telling you that is that, let's just fast forward. And let's say a year later into retirement, you're in a complete state of confusion and you can't sleep at night. May sound familiar to your situation right now. Cost of living in Colorado is enormous. Inflation's at an all-time high. You're sick of the cold weather, by the way. You just say, why did I move from Texas? You're working harder than you've ever worked before because you're trying to micromanage all these people that are managing your situation. And by the way, you got a huge surprise on your tax return because you didn't know how anything worked in retirement, and you've never been closer to your accountant than you are now.
Right now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, this is kind of a common thread, a common theme of something that happens. And the whole situation with this is that, and let me just kind of back up and let me say something, because I think this is really important. My dad actually started this business. The way he started what we do today was educating the public. He went out to universities. He was at Abilene, with all three of the universities over there: Abilene, Wichita Falls, Stephenville, and he was working through the universities to educate people. He did, at first they were 4-night seminars, just to talk about retirement. And still, when people got through with those seminars, they'd say, what do we do now? And that's the crazy part about it. We always talk about it takes 10,000 hours to master anything, or 10 years to actually become an expert at any one field. And the thing is even if you were to study your situation for 10 years, how do you know what's going to happen to you tomorrow? And are you prepared for that?
Being prepared for what may come.
That's exactly right. So, we are huge advocates of, number one, educating our clients, because we want to teach them the right questions to be asking, those what if questions, those devil's advocate questions. So we believe our philosophy is educate, educate, educate. And you can tell that by this show, right? That's one of the reasons that we do this. Is not necessarily, I love Eastland, Texas. I love Stephenville, Texas, and the surrounding area. But the majority of this show is listened to by our clients because they like the educational aspect of what we're doing. And I think that's really important to consider is do you have that right education? When we come back, we're going to talk about this so-called couple that we, by the way, kind of made up, and talk about what questions they need to be asking about their retirement, and in turn, maybe what you need to be asking about yours.
We'll be back with more Life Planning 101 right here on KTX KWBY. And welcome back into Life Planning 101. Terry Slavens with you, joined by Angela Kennedy Robinson. She's our resident expert. Always enjoy this Monday morning get-together because great information. We're talking about retirement. What do you do now? That's
exactly right. A lot of people just jump in, both feet in, and they really don't think about much. And they think they've got it, made. And in the break, you gave a great scenario, if you don't mind me saying. You were saying, well, they say, I've got $1 million, and if I can make 8% off of that a year, that's $80,000 a year. I can live on that.
Right.
I can do that, right? Well, there's two problems with that scenario. Number one, how are you going to make a consistent 8% a year? CDs are paying barely 0.5% at this point. So that lowers that down to, I don't know, $5,000 a year. Can you live off that? Okay. Then the second thing is if you take more than your interest, you're actually cutting into that principal. And I want you to ask this question. 10 years from now, can you still live off of the same money that you make today?
Absolutely not.
Or you're going to have more money, right?
More than likely.
Yeah. Do you think about 10 years ago? Okay, look backwards if it's hard to look forwards. Look backwards. Was it cheaper to buy groceries 10 years ago than it was today? Absolutely.
Much cheaper.
Right? Okay, so you got to think about that. So where's that extra dollar going to come from? And if you eat into that principle, now your $80,000 of interest, best case scenario, just turned into 70 or 60 or 50. So how's that going to work for you?
Not going to work.
Yeah, it's not going to work for you. And I think a lot of people fail to think about that. And like I mentioned, this has kind of been a constant bug, I think, in everybody's ear. Okay, here we are with the market. A lot of it is overpriced. And we know this. Not all of it. That's the key. Not all of it. But a lot of it is overpriced. We're at all-time highs in the market. And I think everybody has a little recollect of what happened in 2008, 2009. We're all fearful of that happening again. Well, I'm going to tell you this right now. It's not a matter of if the market is going to go down again like it did then.
It's when.
You've just got to be prepared for it. But does that mean that you have to put your money in a savings account or under your mattress? Well, let me give it to you this way. Inflation. That's what we were just talking about, that cost of living going up every year. If that's 4%, which a lot of experts believe that's where it's at today. So if that's at 4%, what that means is your money, January 1 every year, it automatically starts out with a negative 4% return.
So that 8% is now a 4% net.
That's right. But if your money's sitting in cash, you just lost money. You're going broke safely. May feel really safe, but you're going broke, okay? So you can't afford to do that, especially if you're 55, 60, 65 years old, okay? A lot of people say, well, by the time I'm 80, I'm really going to be slowed down. I'm not going to be doing much. Let me tell you something. We have a lot of 75-year-olds and 80-year-olds that are still traveling, still seeing their grandkids, still running around to Alaska or California or wherever they want to go. So if you're retiring at 55 years old, there's a very high chance that you will have 20 to 25 years of active retirement, spending as much, if not more, than you do right now.
What's the old saying? I'm spending my kids' retirement. Or
That's exactly right. And you better have a death plan at 80. I mean, because, that's the thing.
Okay, Mom, Dad.
If you don't plan for it, right? So, that's kind of one thing to consider. Another thing to consider kind of on the lifestyle side, and I think this is really important, is, looking at your budget. Now, I want you to think about when you first got married or when you first started out. I guarantee to a certain extent that you had some sort of budget. You knew how much your bills were going to be every month. You knew if you could afford to buy that new car or that house or whatever that was. Where has that gone? Why aren't you doing that anymore? Nobody's doing that anymore, okay? But herein lies the problem, okay? So here we are about to retire. Do you think it's important to know where every dollar is going to come from?
Yes.
So do you think it's important to know what every dollar is going to be?
Yes.
Yeah, it's more important than ever. The people that we see are successful in retirement, they budget. It's not restrictive. It's just knowing and understanding where those dollars are going to come from. Second aspect to that is if you're going to make a major move, you probably need to consider some things. First of all, I'd highly recommend taking time off work every year during a different time of year and going and spending an extended stay there, making sure that you really enjoy it all 4 seasons of the year. Okay? It's really important. Really, really important. Because I can't tell you how many times we've had people move off, hate it, and then they're stuck. They can't get out of there. Second thing is cost of living, taxes, all those things. Make sure you do your good research and where you're going to be, because it could be significantly different from where you're experiencing today.
Moving from Texas to another state, one big thing to consider is
state income tax. State income tax, absolutely. And it can make a severe impact on you. So, it's really important to think about all these things and how they're going to, apply to you. Third thing is okay, what are your resources during retirement? Most people, still today to some extent, less and less, some of us have a 2-legged stool in retirement, but most people have had a 3-legged stool in retirement.
The old milking stool.
That's right, the old milking stool. That's exactly the way it is. We got our Social Security, pension income, and then investment income. Well, let's kind of break these down and talk about them, because I think these are, after all, it is your retirement. Wouldn't you think it's a little important to talk about them? Maybe just a tad, okay? We talk a lot about investments, and we just kind of talked about that fact of 4%, and I want to get back to that at the end of the show, because I think this is really important for us to discuss. But let's talk just a minute about Social Security. There are changes with Social Security every single day. In the last 2 weeks, I have given 4 different pieces of advice how to take Social Security. Think about that.
4 different
pieces of advice. I have told 4 different people 4 different things.
Because of their situations.
Because of their situations. So do you think you can do it alone?
No.
No, absolutely not. It's probably the most crucial decision that you will make in retirement, how to do it. Unless you have a pension. If you have a pension, this becomes the most important piece of planning that you need to make. Time and time again, we see so many people accidentally leave their spouse in the cold when they pass because they didn't make the right decisions with their pension.
And those are tough decisions to make.
They are tough decisions to make.
Many things that factor into it.
That's exactly right. It's not just check a box and go on. I can't tell you how many times that we actually have to do about a week worth of work trying to figure out which is the best pension option. It's extremely important to look at those and make sure you know what you're doing. When we come back, we're going to talk about that third leg. You don't want to miss it.
We'll be back with more Life Planning 101 right after this. And welcome back into Life Planning 101 here on KTX KWBY. We continue with retirement. What do you do now?
That's right. And we've been talking about how important, these three legs of retirement is: Social Security and employer pensions. And you know what? I don't feel like I really painted a real good picture about that before the break. So I want to point out something. Let's imagine that the majority of your income in retirement is Social Security and a pension. And something happens to you. What if your spouse lost half of that? Would they be able to continue living the lifestyle you live today?
No.
What if they lost 3/4 of that?
Absolutely not.
What if they lost all of it?
All of it.
All of it's not realistic because Social Security is not going to be all or nothing. You get to take one of your Social Securities at death, but if you aren't careful and you don't plan right, and a lot of people with pensions may have small Social Securities, especially when we're talking about teachers, railroad, those types of things. So you really have got to do your planning here.
Clergy.
Yes, you've got to do your planning. It's so important. And then, kind of sticking back to those investments. And so we talked a little bit about, got that $1 million if it was making 8% a year consistently, inflation eating into 4% of that. And I want to tell you some things about inflation because I think this is interesting. A lot of people say, well, the government says our inflation's only 1% or 1.5% because that's how much my Social Security gets increased every year. Well, you forget the government is trying to figure out ways not to spend money. Okay? Well, and here even a Fed economist, Michael Kiley, wrote that, inflation has been surprisingly high, not low, since the Great Recession. We know it. We're going to the grocery store. We know since 2009 that things have gotten out of hand price-wise. Look at the cost of a vehicle.
Wow, yeah.
Really?
People have spent less on their first homes than they're paying on a vehicle now.
That's exactly right. And so, I want you to think about a couple things. In 1980, it was the highest one-year inflation rate that we've had in the last 50 years. And if you think 50 years sounds like a lot of time, then you got to think about your retirement. Because it sure could be 30, 40, 50 years. In 1980, it was the highest inflation rate. It was 13.5% in 1 year. 13.5%. So if you had $1 million and you were sitting in cash, that means you woke up and your value of your account was really only $865,000 the next year. Think about that.
Very scary.
That is very scary. And, let's think about the lowest inflation rate over that same period of time, just to be fair. And by the way, this was the only 1 year in the last 50 years we've had negative inflation. 1 year. I bet you can guess the year.
The year that we had negative inflation.
Negative inflation.
Help me out here.
2009.
Yes.
Okay. Negative 0.4%.
0.4. Yes.
Negative 0.4. Okay. And that's, of course, what the government tells us, right? So, your average long-term inflation from 1913 to 2015, almost a 100-year period, has been 3.18%. Those are government numbers, so take it with a grain of salt.
That's what they want us to hear.
That's right. That's right. So, my question is, when is going to be your last day of your life? And if you're really thinking about these inflation numbers and knowing you've got to outpace that, okay, if you're going to take 4% off your portfolio, off your investments, and inflation is 3.18%, that means you have to make 7.18% to not fear running out of money. Now, let me couple this all together. What about the day that your spouse doesn't get your Social Security anymore or doesn't get hers because one of you is gone?
Right.
Does that mean that your living expenses are going to change that dramatically?
No.
So where's that extra money going to come from?
Hopefully you've planned.
You've got the investments. So does that really mean that you can just take 4% off your investments?
No.
This is a common mistake that a lot of people make. They maximize everything at retirement, thinking if I really cut here and I really do this and I do this and I got it all figured out, right? And then something happens. Nope, you don't have it all figured out. So, it's really important that you think about. Now, there are tons of ways to fix this problem. That's where we come in. We're kind of that financial surgeon. Just comes in and starts figuring out where we need to cut and how we need to sew it up, right?
Right.
And that's exactly how things need to work, is you need to have that third-party view on your picture. We're actually reading a great book inside of our office right now. It's talking about teamwork. And it's talking about one of the most crucial things that we need as individuals, as humans, is the ability to be looked at and criticized. We all need it. Constructive criticism, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Why don't we take it when it comes to our money?
Because we're funny that way.
We're funny that way.
We're funny about our money.
And we're funny about our money. And shouldn't it be the opposite?
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. Let's get to our trivia.
Okay.
Because we want to give away something today. We have a system that gives you your risk tolerance, tells you how your portfolio should be built on that risk tolerance, and it will stress test it against what happened in 2008, against the tech bubble, against anything you want to stress test against. Pretty cool, huh?
Cool.
All right. So answer this for us. What was the highest one-year inflation rate that U.S. citizens experienced in the last 50 years? Was it A, 5.5%, B, 9.5%, or C, 13.5%? We're also going to put this on our Twitter poll at KFS Life Planning, so you can go on and get the answer right then and there after you've got it. But the first one to get it to Life Planning at Kennedy-financial.com gets that Riskalyze and that stress test. Awesome, awesome, awesome. We've been using it with every one of our clients. They are loving it. Being able to see how their risk needs to be paired with how their portfolio is actually doing. Pretty dang cool. So
very cool.
Don't want to miss that. We just appreciate our listeners every week. Make sure that, you take your takeaway from this week is to stop and make sure that you have someone that's unemotionally attached to your money helping you through all this decision making. Because remember, how many chances do you get to retire?
Only once.
Yep. So only one chance to do it right.
Might as well do it right.
That's exactly right. So God bless and have a great week.
Thank you, Angela. Life Planning 101 right here on KTX KWBY.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services of Eastland. Tune in every Monday morning at 8:30 on KATX and again on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock on KATX and KWBY for more Life Planning 101.
Advisory services offered through Smart Money Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Kennedy Financial Services Incorporated is an independent of Calton & Associates Incorporated and Smart Money Group, LLC.